Yeah, let's get into this. This is something that we talked about a little bit. This is an interesting topic. Dylan Raiola, the number one player, number one quarterback in the 2024 class.
Oh, boy.
He's got a decision to make. And right now, as it appears, okay, he's got some teams up there. One of the, two of the teams happen to be the teams we've covered today on today's show, which just so happen to be our favorite teams, Nebraska and Georgia. I'll kind of kick it over to you and let you kind of start off on it. What do you think?
I'm going to kick it over to you. I'm going to hear your thoughts because you're a Georgia boy. So I want to hear what you have to say and your insight go against mine right now. So I'm going to let you you give me what you think there, big dog. And what do you think?
I
this
think
this is going to be super tough, by the way. So.
This is going to be tough. I mean, because we're talking about a kid in high school who, has been I don't know. I think it's a situation where I think anybody that gets him is gonna be really lucky to get him. I think he's a great player.
Damn.
I read an article the other day. Matthew Stafford talked about him, and he said he hadn't seen him in a while because Matthew Stafford actually played with his dad, on the Lions, and he said the kid's bigger than he is, already in high school. And the other thing he was saying is his dad, I forgot the dad's name. But anyways, he was sending Matt, clips of Dylan and, some of his practice film in high school. And Matt said he was blown away by it. I think, I don't know. I think Dylan's going to probably end up a Husker. That's where my heart's kind of leaning with it. But I will say this. I think that if he went to Georgia,
oh boy,
if he went to Georgia, I think that would just be, it would just be unstoppable. Honestly, I think the Dogs would have a great path for when he would get to town. He'd come to town. He'd probably sit for a year under Carson Beck, or whoever ends up being the quarterback this year for Georgia. And then he's got a real legitimate shot to play, in a couple of years. And I think that would just be sort of the creme de la creme coming to the top right as Texas and Oklahoma are entering into the chat into the SEC.
Yeah. I love your sob story to try to get him to Georgia, and that's great. He's coming here, bro. He's coming here. Write it down. He's coming here. The kid is great. I know people that personally know his family and stuff around here and shit, and they said there's I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be the first one to probably say this on air. Scott Frost is the guy that kind of deterred him for a long time from coming here. You know what I mean? Yeah. The way Scott Frost handled that whole recruiting thing. I'm not going to get into that personally on here, but I kind of know some stories on that. I think he comes here, dude. And yes, overall, it's not just because I'm biased towards Nebraska, right? I think he comes here because I think if you listen to the kid talk, he's actually very, very mature for his age when he talks. Kind of reminds me, I don't want to say, I'm not going to go out on a limb here and say Jalen Hurts. You hear him talk in the NFL for the Eagles. Very wise beyond his years, but he knows enough. This kid's been talked about for years, bro. I've been hearing this kid's name thrown out when he was a freshman in high school. You know what I mean? This kid was hyped up to be what he's supposed to be. And yeah, does everybody pan out to be that way? No. And could this kid fail? Absolutely. Every one of us could fail at anything, but I think that I truly do believe he comes here. I think he's actually, I said this to my girlfriend's son, who's almost 15 here, and he follows recruiting like crazy. And we talk about him every day in a goddamn weight room, bro. He's the guy that I think can actually change Nebraska's culture where we're at. We all talk about the quarterback position being the most important, right?
Yep.
I think and again, I'm putting a lot of faith in a freaking young kid here, but his hype, and boy, if you've seen him throw a football, and I don't get very excited at all about high school highlight tapes. Fuck, Christian, I could look at yours as quarterback and be like, well, that guy looks like he's going to play in the NFL, we could say that about anybody, right? Me in high school catching passes and shit like that, playing defense. To me, it's more, I just think this kid actually does have a little bit of buzz around him. I think he could come in here and kind of reignite an offense. Kid can throw the football, bro. I mean, he is a fucking rocket. If Matthew Stafford's talking about him, I think Matthew Stafford turned out pretty well. He's borderline Hall of Famer in the NFL right now with one Super Bowl. The guy has a lot of records, and boy, I watched him play at Georgia, and that guy has like probably one of the craziest arms I've ever seen, stat wise. I mean, you're talking about arm ability, so I could get into the whole thing about that. But like, I think he's coming here, from my understanding. And it could have changed. Yes. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I hope he does come here because I'm a Nebraska fan. I know you're a Georgia fan. You want him, rightfully so. But I think he comes here. I think he's a guy that can kind of up. I think Matt Rule can recruit.
Yeah.
We need a quarterback, especially after this year because of the whole Jeff Sims and Casey Thompson. I'll be interested if you really want to ask me about how they think Nebraska's going to use him this year. I think it'll be kind of cool. But he's a guy that I think can kind of change the dynamic of a team, especially in college football. If he's really as good as they say he is, kind of get other people to come in, right? He looks really good his freshman year. I mean, we're talking hypothetically here. And I mean, we're talking about a high school kid that's never thrown a fucking college pass yet, but he's got a lot of buzz, bro. And we have not had a true quarterback in 20 plus years. I'll leave it at that.
He's the kind of kid is a talent, for his class that is so good that you keep his uncle on staff, on retainer to coach your worst position on your team, arguably one of your worst positions, which is offensive line.
Absolutely. You brought that up.
Yep. Just to get him to come to your school. And look, I honestly, now the more I think about it, Georgia never really, I mean, they had some quarterbacks. They can go out and get some. I mean, I think the last time they got like one of the better quarterbacks was Fields, But I think the reason why he's flirting with Georgia, it just seems, the more I think about it, Chris, the more it doesn't really seem like a likely marriage between the both of them. It seems more like in this world of NIL, it just seems like a sort of I don't want to say a stunt or anything like that, but it just seems more like a business decision to openly, publicly flirt with Georgia so he can drive up his valuation and maybe make a little bit more money on the NIL side of it.
And from his point of view, as this whole NIL thing is starting to take off, right? And I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but like, you guys have just won 2 national titles back to back, right?
Yeah.
You guys are the predominant fucking college football team. Let's say it. You know what I mean? You guys are. Everybody knows Georgia now football because of what you guys have done. I think you're exactly right. I think he's kind of like, well, I'm open to Georgia. I mean, fuck, these guys won 2 in a row, if they really want, you know what I mean? And I think it's a business type of decision. You have to play it that way, right? I mean, would you not, Christian, if you were in his shoes?
No, I'd commit to Georgia if I was in his shoes, but that's why
you've been, the entire time, but I get it.
But if I was in his shoes though, and I was, where's he live at? Arizona or Texas, I think is where he plays, but they live in Arizona. Yeah. If I was somewhere over there, it's tough. It's tough because, you look at Georgia, the best quarterback they've had in the last 20 years was Stafford.
Oh,
you know what I mean? As far as, the best quarterback that they've had, as far as championships and everything is concerned, is Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
But in NFL talent, we're talking Matthew Stafford. Everybody else, I mean, you go back to Aaron Murray, Jake Fromm, a lot of those guys. I mean, they're great quarterbacks, but they did not do a whole hell of a lot in the NFL.
Right. But if you're, let's be honest, dude, when you're a number one quarterback coming out of high school, college is obviously important, but your number one goal is to play in the NFL, I'm assuming. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of guys we could go on the list that didn't make it as number one quarterbacks out of high school, but like he's thinking big term. I don't care what he can tell you he's not, but I mean, every kid knows that. Like if you're the number one fucking quarterback in the country, bro, you're playing on Sundays. You know what I mean? That's your goal. Yeah. Like wherever the hell it is. And yeah, you're going to have to stop and make a stop at Georgia, or make a stop at Nebraska, or play at Tennessee or Florida State or Alabama or wherever. I mean, we could go down a list of teams, but like, I think that, dude, I've been hearing about this kid just because I'm from here. And I actually got my parents' neighbors are really good friends with his family. And they have talked about him since he was a freshman, dude. This kid, just keep an eye on him, and I'm like, damn, I never buy into hype, but like to me, where we're at now, the Huskers are, just talking about them specifically, he could change the whole dynamic of a pro. You know what I mean? If he actually comes in as a freshman, and I'm not saying he's got to be a world beater, but he leads by example. He doesn't turn the ball over. got an offensive line that's halfway ass and decent in front of him. You know what I mean? Like you can change because we haven't had that. And that is no knock on anybody that's came here. But we haven't had a lot of big name talent at quarterback. I mean, as much as I like Casey Thompson, he was average last year, right? You think of other quarterbacks we've had in the past, Taylor Martinez and Zach Taylor, who's coaching the Bengals now. You know, I could think about much Joe Gantz. I could go back to Eric Crouch. You know what I mean? He won a Heisman Trophy, which is insane. We haven't had like a guy that like can kind of do it all since like Tommy Frazier, and Tommy Frazier wasn't even a great passer. You know, we ran the ball predominantly. So I would love to see a guy like Dylan Raiola at his number one high school quarterback and been talked about forever. That would be great, dude. I think great. And does he pan out to be that way? We don't know, but just to get on track and just to be able to have some momentum, I think you get a number one quarterback in there, Christian. Probably bring some other kids in that want to play wide receiver, right? I want to catch passes from this dude.
Well, I think they got one. Didn't they get that Malachi Coleman kid
yeah,
too?
He's a stud. And you brought him up, yes. Yeah, he's a stud. He's a tremendous athlete.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Let's get into this because you brought it up. We're going to kind of go off script just a little bit here. You know, you'd mentioned. Anyways, you had mentioned Jeff Sims.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
I'm looking up his stats right now.
Yep.
This Jeff Sims kid, I mean, he's looking pretty good. You know, I mean, he was at Georgia Tech. Yeah, he's an athlete. You know, he had his first year, he had 1,800 yards, you know, at Georgia Tech in 2020, 13 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Next year, he had, you know, almost 1,500 yards. He had 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So he cut down on that. And then last year, he had 1,100 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And you know, it's interesting. He accounted for, you know, almost 2,300 yards his first year and more than 19 touchdowns, which is pretty good. You know, I mean, total. And you know, he's kind of regressed a lot, but I mean, so did Georgia Tech as a team. You know, out there. I think
a dumpster fire as far as like that coaching carousel and everything that they've had with players and that whole program. I don't blame that all on him. I don't.
No, I don't blame it at all on him. I mean, they're trying to figure it out. And I think, again, he's, you know, with the right system, he could be a very good athlete. I think he could be a very good quarterback. My question to you is, do you see in a situation where maybe Thompson goes down, they plug him in and he ends up getting a shot? You know, what do you think his career looks like at Nebraska?
Okay. This is my thing. I don't know if I had seen a couple tweets. I don't know how much credibility you hold towards that kind of crap, and I don't even have Twitter, but I've heard through other people, you know, him and Casey Thompson kind of have a little bit of a beef going back and forth, right? Because he's coming over here, right? Thompson was starting quarterback last year. I don't know how much I hold into this whole thing, but I've heard some things, and we could all speculate on certain shit, but, you know, and I want a quarterback competition, dude. I do. I think that makes everybody better. I truly, truly believe that. I think Casey gets a starting nod. I also think they're going to use Jeff Sims, though. I know Matt Rule's style of offense at Baylor. I like to kind of mix it up, kind of go with some goofy shit once in a while, kind of like what the Chiefs do, right? In the NFL. I think they're going to bring him in on certain plays, right? You know what I mean? Bring him in as a little bit of because he can run, dude. The kid is an athlete. Like, he is a tremendous runner. He can run. I think they kind of use him that way. And yeah, if to answer your question, if Thompson goes down, yeah, absolutely. I think he's no brainer, the second string quarterback. But if he has a really good season, or not season, but preseason with the team and everything, I think they use him in certain packages. You know what I mean? Little RPO with him. Bring Casey in. I've never been a fan of 2 quarterback system, but I could kind of see where kind of use this kid, man. Casey's a good athlete, like as far as like a quarterback goes, but like he can run a little bit. But Sims, man, that kid, you want to run the fucking football. That kid's he kind of reminds me of Jalen Hurts, man. He's kind of a guy that can kind of poor man's Jalen Hurts, where you can he's basically a running back playing quarterback. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a tall, athletic kid. I mean, yes. I think they'll get him into some packages. They're going to definitely want to have some experience there, and try to see what he can do. I mean, I think, again, you know, Casey Thompson's probably the guy when healthy.
Absolutely.
You know, I definitely think he's your guy. You get Sims in there, let him get a little bit of experience, especially if the season starts to kind of go off the rails a little bit. You let him
Oh,
play.
for sure.
You let him play, let him get some experience. It's your first year, kind of like we talked about on both sides of the ball. You have to let these kids play, and you have to get them experience at this level in your system. I think that if you do land Raiola and you have this guy, that could be a good bridge there because he's got, I think, 2 years of eligibility
He
left, if I'm not
does.
mistaken.
I think you're right.
So I think that's going to be critical in kind of keeping the locomotive going there, for sure.